Okay, welcome into another episode of Happening Hoops Chats. It's been a while here, but I'm joined by a special guest today, Coach Eric Skeeters, assistant coach at Coppin State. It's good to talk to you today, Coach.
Hey, thank you, Ethan. Happy to be on, my man. I
Yeah,
appreciate you.
absolutely. So yeah, I'll just kind of get into it. You've had a long
Okay.
coaching career, with many stops along the way,
Mhm.
and various places: Coppin State, Towson, Youngstown State, Virginia Tech, South Florida, George Mason, UMBC, Delaware State. Um, Many of those spots, were as an assistant coach, and I feel like they were under
Mhm.
some impressive head coaches. Fang Mitchell, Seth Greenberg, Ryan Odom. I guess
Mhm.
first
Mhm.
question would be, what have you been able to learn from those guys over your many stops in your career?
Wow, great question. I mean, a lot. So many different places, and it's funny when I'm now here at Coppin for the second time.
Yeah, kind
I
of full
feel like,
circle.
there you go, exactly, full circle. Um, a lifer, and learned so much. I don't know if you mentioned Paul Hewitt. I was with the George Mason
Yeah.
for a short term for 2 years as well. So it's an interesting journey. I mean, I think Ryan Odom checked all the boxes in regards to like we worked together as assistants at Virginia Tech, and then coming in under him, it was his first head coaching job, the Division One school at UMBC, and that run. Hey, excuse me, 1 second. Come on, I'll get you in a second. I'm sitting here in the gym, so
Yeah.
that's just the life of a coach. um, and so learning, I mean, so many different things. I mean, Seth Greenberg, we took when he got hired at Virginia Tech, it was at the time in the Big East. And so the goal was to make the Big East tournament because there was only 12 teams going to Madison Square Garden out of 16 teams in the league. And so that was the goal coming out of the Final Four. Coach got hired, he put a staff together, and then, 90 days into the job, we're going to ACC. It's like, the not no knock on the Big East. I think Big East is probably, if not one of the best conferences in basketball since its inception. But at that time, where Virginia Tech was located, now you're talking about recruiting to beat Duke, Carolina, Maryland in your backyard, and all the close Virginia. So, and then going to work uh, for Pat Kennedy at Towson. Pat was the president of the NABC. So yeah, exactly. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
even though we were at a job, I mean, coaches, he's also a two-time ACC coach here at Florida State. Paul got Paul back going a big city, Chicago, with Quentin Richardson being nationally ranked and going to the NCAA tournament. But then I learned from Pat Kennedy the business of college basketball. Coach Kennedy communicated with the governor of the state, the board of regents, the board of visitors. He wasn't just talking to or having conversations with ADs and the like. His son Joey was on Barack Obama's campaign team in his first his first run for president. Like
Wow.
there was just so many different levels of conversations in life. And I just had my first my two kids. One was born in Youngstown, one was born in Blacksburg. Next thing you know, we're in Towson, Maryland, my home. I'm back home. So
Yeah, yeah.
it was just so much to it that, hey, lady, how are you? I'm coming in. Uh, it's so much to it. I mean, I will say this because I got to give Coach Wells at St. Francis Academy uh, a shout out. The guy who literally I was writing a scouting report. Just finished playing JUCO ball with a guy named Eric Austin and got me a workout down in Florida. And he had a scouting service called the Sawgrass Scouting Report. And so we went down, drove from Baltimore with two of my friends, my high school teammates, and two of our friends, and Eric's brother Steven, and my long lost friend Tony, Anthony Onion Head State. We went on a recruiting trip to a JUCO in Florida, but Eric ran a scout service. So tried out for the team, came back and played. Uh, at Catonsville Community College, played 2 years there. During the scouting service, Coach Wells offered me an opportunity to coach the JV at St. Francis in the summer of 1992 because we had gotten close, and during the scouting service, I picked the Summer League All-Star team down at the Dome for the Craig Cromwell Summer League. So when Coach Wells, and I became a JV coach for Coach Wells in Catholic League, I was a student at Coppin State, and getting close to Coach Brown, Coach Fang, and Eddie Blackwell at Coppin State. And I told Fang, I said, hey, I got the JV job at St. Francis. And he's like, you got something a lot of people want. I'm like, what are you talking about, Fang? I got the JV job at St. Francis. He said, no, son. And I'm a young guy. He said, no, you have a job coaching basketball. And a lot of people want that. And that's never left. This was the summer of 1992. And so in all the different styles, Youngstown State under John Rowe, Virginia Tech, Jeff Greenberg, Towson, Pat Kennedy, University of South Florida, Stan Heath in the Big East, George Mason, Paul Hewitt, out of the business for a year, then back with Ryan Odom at Old Dominion, then head coach at Delaware State. That's the Greenberg had a line to call it was called a lifer. A lifer. So that's a tag I'll wear proudly if that's what I'm considered, because this beat's working. And I was talking to Jeremy Cox, former sister. We worked together at South Florida. And literally was just talking to him out in the park lot before coming in the gym. And in between my time off, after getting let go with George Mason, I worked for Southwest Airlines and Nike store, as well as doing training and substitute teacher in Fairfax County, where George Mason is located. And he just remembered, I said, it was one of the coldest winters in a long time, 2015, 16, in that area. My first day out there on the ramp, I was on the ramp, you had to do your training on the ramp before you could move anywhere else. At the level that I came in at, it was 7 degrees below. I don't even know. So I always say coaching beats working.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I didn't even touch on it there, but some of the teams that you have been on have been, I mean, I would imagine, I think you're probably the only coach who's been on a staff of a team, a 15 seed and a 16 seed that has upset a team in the NCAA tournament. Because obviously 16 seed on the men's side, that's only happened once. So I'm just going to go out on a limb there. And obviously for the viewers, the 15 seed, Coppin State, they beat South Carolina in the NCAA tournament in 97.
1997.
Yeah.
We beat South Carolina. Eddie Fogler always gives me the bird and tells me to go find myself when I mention that.
Yeah.
But no, in 97, led by Antoine Broccoli, Danny Singletary, Turk Lamont, Reggie Welch, Fred Ward, Kareem Lewis, and the lights, Coach Frank Mitchell. We were the third in the history of the NCAA tournament, third 15 seed to beat a 2 seed. And South Carolina had won the SEC, won the SEC tournament. Billy Packer and others had them going to the Final Four. And when I say we beat them, it was our guard play, but they beat the defending champs, the Rick Pitino team that had just won that championship in 96. And it was a return that they lost to Arizona in the championship game in 97. So that South Carolina team was really good.
Yeah.
Really good. And the UMBC team, that was a special group because Ryan Odom had taken, it was his first head coaching job, his second year. But from day one that we stepped on campus with that group, there was a buy. Those kids bought in. From Ben Grace, who was a senior walk-on, and Will Darley were the seniors. Our first year, we won 21 games. We won more games in that season than Will had won in his career.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the area, and UMBC was always like a 6-7 win team. And really, once Ryan got there, they just like magically turned the corner.
No, those guys, to their credit, and I'm talking all the seniors for both those 2 years, Ben Grace, Will Darley, and then the next year, Jarris Lyles, Jordan Grant, KJ Mora, they bought in. They believed. They questioned, but there was never a doubt of why. You know, whatever it was that they were told to do from a player's perspective, from a coach's perspective, and in beating Vermont in the championship of the American East Tournament, they did it because they wanted to win. And so when we got to Selection Sunday, and we had 24 wins, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, we were just happy. Obviously, you know, we knew where we were going. We didn't know where we were going. We knew we were in.
Yep.
And so, you know, first one come up, Virginia's playing UMBC, and okay, the excitement. But then kind of afterwards, it kind of hit the guys, the players, like,
Yeah.
hey man, if they're the number one overall seed,
I thought the team was going to be a 15
the
seed.
bottom.
I was surprised like you guys. Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, that's how good Vermont was that year too. That was a hell of a win. So just to put some things in perspective, UMBC had lost as a program 23 straight to Vermont.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys that were seniors had never beaten Vermont. They've never seen that day. So we won the American East Tournament, and Vermont was projected to be a 14 seed had they won. So with that, being a 16, going into that game, and I say this to everybody that I've ever told this story to, I wish there was a video. Somebody was recording Ryan Odom pregame speech. It was the best speech ever. It was epic. It motivated me as a coach.
What did he say in it? What did he say?
So he talked about his dream, that he thanked the players for helping his dream become a reality. Ryan always dreamed of being a head coach. He's from North Carolina, and he had gotten fired. He was the interim head coach at UNC Charlotte just 3 years prior, when his former boss, I can't remember, Alan Major, had gotten sick. So Ryan took over and coached the team to the end of the season. And the AD had told him basically they were going to be okay, and they got fired in the year. So he landed on his feet at Lenore Ryan, got the UMBC job the next year. Here we are 2 years into the program, building the program. We're in this tournament.
Yep. And
he talked about the experiences with his son who was sick, the sacrifices he made, that maybe 3 years prior, as the fired interim coach at UNC Charlotte, he sat in that arena watching his favorite team play. I think it was Sanford. I can't remember the coach's name, Jimmy Talelli. I don't know if that's the right name. He died Sanford at the time. He's like, his style of play is the way Ryan wanted to play. He said, if he ever had an opportunity to be a head coach, that style of play is the way we were playing. And he literally, he got emotional, and he told those, he thanked them. He thanked those guys for helping make his dream come true. And so the night before the practice, Thursday night, Friday, we were the last team to practice. Mm-hmm. So the announcers were there, Grant Hill, Bill Rafferty, Jim Nance, and Tracy was, because they had to, do the interview, because they were doing the game the next day.
Yep.
Number one overall seed. And so Jim Nance, he gave Ryan the seed. He planted the seed. He said he called the Masters, Super Bowls, Final Fours, national championships. He never called a 16 seed beating a 1. And I'm standing right there, doing the conversation. And so KJ's back. KJ Moore's dad had a T-shirt on, and he was up in the bleachers and he yelled across the arena, Mr. Moore, turn around. Show him your shirt. So the back of his T-shirt, it has "Why Not Us," right? As a 16 seed beating a 1. Why not us? And there's so much to that story, but in the pregame talk, Ryan told the guys, let's go give Jim Nance what he asked for.
Yeah. Wow.
And I told him when the guys went out, they were so, we were still not fully dressed or whatever. It was the first pregame talk. I wanted to put on a jersey that night. I said, I hope somebody was recording. I just grabbed, but we all were just like, and he was, he spoke from his heart, and it wasn't a fictitious Rocky story. It was real life, and those guys have been through the things with us, obviously, since we stepped foot on campus. I'm driving from Fairfax, Virginia to Baltimore every day to practice. We got, Coach Griff Aldridge, who's now the head coach at Longwood, had just relocated his family from Houston, Texas. And he's got 3 adopted kids that are all Black, and it was so many, and the spiritual part of it, as a staff, every pregame, that second season, we all did fellowship every pregame. So we took time to pour into the word, into the Bible, and tell our life stories, man, throughout that season. And it just culminated in that game. Ethan, I can't, I could sit here and talk about that for days, right? Because obviously it's a one-on-one, but to Garrett Lyles' credit, because he was a kid that played in the mountains with all those pros, the Grant brothers, Quinn Cook, you know, he felt as though this was his opportunity to prove to the world that he was a good player. You know, he put us on his back. I'm not going to say he won us the game against Vermont. He had the game-winning shot, but, you know, there's pictures. I'll send you the pictures of Max Kern and Jordan Grant blocking the shot. The possession prior to Jarris making that game-winning shot. It was so many different things. Man, that team, that's a special group. It's almost like, what is it? The hockey movie? What is that? The 1980?
Yeah.
Hockey team that beat the Russians.
Yeah.
It's and humbly speaking, I say that because of being in the sport of basketball, college basketball. Obviously, it's a dream job, but that experience in itself, and having, you know, been a part of a 15 beating the two, you know, South Florida, we went to the third round. We were a pretty good team in the Big East. Coach Heath was Big East Coach of the Year that year, 2012. But this, and it's the only one to ever happen. It's why the kids see that. It's literally what playing college feels in college basketball.
Yeah. My goodness, that's an incredible story. I appreciate you taking the time to tell that. And then I guess, like, segueing on, I mean, you mentioned, you know, Griff Aldrich there. He went and got the head coaching job at Longwood. You went and got the head coaching job at Delaware State. Kind of rare that you see a mid-major team, two assistant coaches going and getting other Division I head coaching jobs. But it happened with you guys. And, you know, I mean, the Delaware State job, obviously, like, probably didn't go necessarily as you were hoping. But, you know, in all honesty, and I'm not trying to sit here and, like, you know, trash your former employer, nor do I think you are
No.
want to, but it is a difficult job in all honesty.
Yes, these one bid leagues, these conferences are all hard, super hard jobs. Right? Duke is hard, Kentucky's hard, you know, Coppin State is hard.
What are some of the challenges that would be unique to, like, a Delaware State that you faced?
Resources and the use and the proper use and how they allow you to field a team. The resources for things like, you know, in the locker room and what you don't have as far as we had kids transfer from Dayton, Tennessee, or NCAA tournaments. And so, you know, it's like, Coach, we don't have a refrigerator with water, and those type of challenges to wallpaper and put some graphics up on the wall and decorate the locker room and put new furniture, kids build the kids' morale. So the locker rooms are home away from home. I mean, they're in the dorm, but when they're meeting it together as a group, pre-game, before practice, after practice, you know, playing video games, weights, they spend just as much time in there as anywhere else. If you're dedicated, you know, they put in extra hours getting shots up on the gun. And Delaware State did not allow those types of things. They did not support those types of things. Just did not, you know, I could give you some negative. I'm not going to do that. But
I mean, you're not that kind of guy to make excuses.
No, I'm not going to kill them.
But I asked the question, so it's
No. I totally understood, and every job has its challenge. I mean, but NIL now, you know, who has the biggest collectives? You know, that's you know, so in football we don't even. To Delaware State's credit, they had a big time coach in Rob Milstead, who was one of their own, who was drafted, went to the NFL, won a Super Bowl with Deion Sanders' teammate with the 49ers. He's got a ring of his own, who was head coach at Delaware State. He's no longer there. And, you know, they didn't support him. So I learned this from Tommy Andrew. Great programs have great support and great administration. So when you see a program that's successful year in, year out, I don't care what sport it is, I bet you $1 to a donut, they got a great administration. And I'm talking about board of trustees, presidents, ADs, support staff, academic support, weight room, the entire machine, so to speak. And you know, you could go down the list of who's winning regardless of VCU. VCU is a basketball program since the 80s. Sonny Smith and all the different, you know, the Mac McCarthy, the Jeff Capel, Anthony Grant, Dr. Smart, to Mike is there now. Like, it's a reason why VCU has won year in, year out. It's just support them. It's the administration. It can't just be the coaches and the players. Mm-hmm. So a job like that in the MEAC, you know, that place that they have to get it right. The leadership. Leadership. If they don't, then, you know, sometimes you have to wonder if you can look, if you can put your finger to what's right and what's wrong. I didn't have, I'll put this because this is a fact. I inherited an APR penalty. We had a APR postseason thing in the year of COVID 2021, and we couldn't play in the conference tournament. We couldn't practice. We had to take 2 days off of practice every week. And with that, then I got let go. Those are facts. And so you put those things into place. It's like, you know, my first Division I win, we beat University of Delaware at Delaware. And Delaware State hadn't beaten.
What year was that? Because I think I was covering. I know I was covering one of those games.
1819. I literally
1819. Oh, I think I was at that game. Yeah, I think I was covering that.
Okay. Well, and it's funny because that was my first. We had beat 291s prior to that, and we beat them. Obviously, it was a big game, and a couple of the board people and some of the
that one was at Delaware that year, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I was at that one. Yeah.
So it wasn't what we could do, not just coaching and players, but were we able to build? That we had the support, and that's again, it comes down to the leadership. It comes down to the administration. When you look at, you know, the successful football programs, the North Dakota States, and so that's in the, I call it the 1AA. I know that's not what they call it anymore. Mm-hmm. But you got the football playoffs, and that are winning every year. You have, you know, the Alabamas and the Clemsons and schools like that are, you know, consistently. I'm a Delaware State fan. You know, football anyway. Got football. I always Tommy Polly. Shout out to my guy. You have to look from the top down more so than just the coach, because if you can focus in on coaching your team, like some coaches have that. I know Kim Enley in and day out, and that's what other things are in place. The academic support, you know, the travel, how you travel, you know. Really all have team. They're not all, they don't have the same feet. So you have the feet move, you know, it's your pay that you get 365 games. That's what you mostly get on the, you know, you get 30. I know one career, get to the tournament, that's your bonus. That's what you're working for as a college basketball coach. And you don't get tenure as an assistant coach. You know, a guy was talking to a former assistant at Notre Dame, Rob, is now with University at Howard University. And he's with Mike Brave for Notre Dame. He spent 20 years at Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. 20 years. I had to bow. I said, Rob, you spent 20 years on the same campus, but man, that's unbelievable. You know, but you don't get tenure as a professor on campus. So the dedication that it takes to coach, and especially in today's social media climate of everybody's opinion is you know, like posted. You know, it used to be where you had to have FCC clearance and an editor to get published.
Yeah.
Like,
No,
and
then
I'm not against
in
it, but it's
these
just so many
days
different.
you can just be a schmuck like me and start, you know, a Twitter and a website and
Yeah,
sound off
exactly.
on whatever you think.
And guess what? You're the lead story on SportsCenter.
Yeah.
No, but and I wouldn't trade it for the world. I'm not saying that at all. It's something that it gets me up every morning and it keeps me up every night because you get those 30 nights. There's nothing like, I think Jay Wright put the best. There's nothing like the locker room.
Yeah.
Being a part of that locker room. Like I talked about Coach Ryan Odom was for the UMBC up to the Virginia. The best part of that game, besides the win, was that pregame locker room.
So correct me if I'm wrong. Is that why you came back to Coppin State? Because I know we first met when you were in that in between year, in between Delaware State and Coppin State. You were at Loyola scouting for the HBCU All-Star game down at the Final Four. And I was shadowing for stats, which I do over there for that game, and that was the first game they had me there for stats. But yeah, and then obviously, you were telling me at some point in the season, you just joined the staff in October, which is, wildly late
it's
to
unheard
start.
of. It's that rare of an opportunity to be a part of college basketball. So, and Juan and I have been talking since I got let go. We've known each other since he was in high school, and I was coaching that JV team. I was coaching the same. He was at Cal Hall. I was at St. Francis, big time rivals.
Yeah.
And we had always kept in touch. And so obviously we coached against each other in the league. And when he called me, he was checking on me, hey coach, how you doing? You ever want to come to practice, things of that nature. And then that turned into a job opportunity. And when he said, let's go, I said, I'm on my way. I dropped. I was doing training, and yes, I was actually the director of scouting for that HBCU All-Star game for this year's Final Four. And I had training right there. I said, Coach, last year's director, Si Alexander, got a job. You 2 for 2. So I got an offer. I couldn't tell him until it was official. And I got all the paperwork done. But it was just too good an opportunity to pass up. And being back in my alma mater as well. I'm an alum. I'm graduate of Coppin State.
Yeah. And then, I mean, the talent that you guys have on this ride, kind of shifting gears a little bit towards this year's current MEAC, the talent that you guys have on the roster is pretty impressive. I mean, obviously, Sessoms and Tark are kind of the two that get a lot of attention, but the other guys on the roster are equally as capable too. I know I've been over there for a few games covering, and it's a fun team to watch. It really is.
Justin Winston, remember that name because Doc got hurt in that Loyola game. Loyola, he literally broke the screw in his foot and popped it, snapped it, so he had to get a screw put back in his foot, his left foot. And when he comes back, he was one of the 2 players that you said at the beginning of the season, if one of these 2 guys go down with an injury, we're done. Well, it was him and Sam Sessions. And literally, when that happened in the Loyola game, I mean, we had to revamp a lot of things that we do. That, because those games we had, he kept us in the Maryland games, the NC State games, those games, non-conference early on. Tennessee beat the Tennessee Tag and obviously came out the W at Loyola and other games that we had. He's one of the guys. Hopefully he comes back probably the end of the month into February to the tournament. That if we had him all year long, I would sit here with no problem and tell you we're good enough for him to meet. We're good enough to go into state tournament because he's a different member. He's a scorer, a rebounder, a communicator, a connector. Yes, in the card, protein, even off saying especially 5 or 6 times player of the week. We acting already. Big team, and there's a lot of the pieces to it that we're still getting better. Tough loss last night at Howard. Who's 4-1 in conference play. I mean, they're playing really well this year. But last year, Coppin was in the MEAC championship, the tournament championship. So these guys know what the end game is. It's winning the conference tournament. to get from NCAA, and they were one game. I mean, they were 20 minutes away last season. So let's just say, yes, we have some pieces with Sam, Linda, Justin Steer, Justin Winston, Greg Burlock. It's sort of, you know, Mike Hill, I was real hard. Henry TJ Scott, who really just doing a league battle, roster. Lucas, Chris Sutton. I don't think I left anybody out. So,
yeah, you pretty much named the entire roster. I did just get
Dan Titus.
yeah. So we're doing the format here for my podcast is a Zoom recorded interview. I just got a message pop up. We got about 7 minutes left in the Zoom here before it kicks us off. So let's quickly talk about the rest of the league. You talked about it a little bit. I think that my thoughts kind of going into it, and I said this on a preview podcast with Mid-Major Madness, was that I felt there's only 8 teams in the league. I felt really 6 of them had a chance to compete and win the league. I think Norfolk State was kind of the favorite, and then everybody except for Del State and South Carolina State kind of rebuilding, I thought could contend. And right now we're getting close to halfway through, and it's right now Eastern Shore, Morgan State, Howard at the top, Central and Norfolk kind of just behind them. You guys not as high up as you'd like. But what do you think of the rest of the league? I've had a chance to see, probably about half or a little bit more than half of the teams. I like Morgan. Their guard play is really good as well. And then Central was obviously hanging with you guys. You had a good game there in Baltimore for that one I went to.
Norfolk Central and Morgan State in the last 10, 15 years have been the premier teams in the conference. Coppin is dominant in the 90s. When Fang retired, I'll give Bob Moulton a lot of credit, Bill Moulton a lot of credit, because he came in and he's won since he got. I think it took him 5 years and he's never looked back. Rob Jones was fifth in Norfolk, went in with Kyle O'Quinn, and then he took over. And it's taken him a while, but he's won postseason, NIT, and NCAA. He won the first 4 games. So those 3 programs have been the most consistent in regards. And Morgan under Brodus has not won a tournament just yet. Actually, I think Coppin knocked him out a couple of years ago when I was at Del State. And so, and Warren shared, Coach Dixon from Coppin State shared the MEAC regular season in 2020 in the COVID season.
Yeah, the COVID year when they split into divisions.
I can't give one the edge over the other, because literally we're going to all beat up on each other over the course of 14 games. Literally, because like we got.
And that's the thing too. It's not like in an 18 league, it's only 14 conference games. Every single one matters more than it does in other leagues.
Without a doubt, even. And Morgan just suffered an injury the other day. Leek Miller, but guess what? Somebody stepped up. Kid Will Thomas had 27 points and they beat them. So after losing to Howard on Saturday, so it's anybody's league.
Yeah,
literally is. Eastern Shore just beat Central at Central, on the last second shot. So it's going to be exciting. I can say that Norfolk is going to be something that everybody's coming in there with the attitude of going dancing. Only on one team. Like Ray Lewis said, only on one team that don't feel what we feel right now. So we're planning on, when we get to March, clicking on all cylinders, and let's see what happens. But there's going to be some really good games as we go down the stretch here in MEAC play for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm planning on trying to get out some more. I was there for the South Carolina State and NC Central games, and hopefully we'll see some more. So. Thank you, Coach Skeeters, for taking the time. It's been a pleasure to talk with you, about your career journey and the MEAC here, and we'll be sure to catch up again soon.
Ethan, always a pleasure. Appreciate you having me, my man, and look forward to the next time.
Yep, absolutely. This has been Happening Hoops Chats, and thank you for tuning in.